What if I told you the biggest Sister Wives bombshell never aired on TLC, and what allegedly happened behind closed courtroom doors may have changed the Brown family forever? This is not about edited drama or reunion specials. This is about financial records, emotional testimony, and one decision that fans say shattered the dream of Coyote Pass for good. So before we expose the details that have viewers completely divided, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because on this channel, we break the stories the network will not show you. And trust me, you are not going to want to miss what comes next. What if everything you thought you knew about the Brown family was only half the story? Because tonight, we are not talking about edited episodes or carefully timed confessionals. We are talking about what fans believe may have unfolded when the cameras were gone and the stakes were no longer ratings but real-life consequences. And if you stay with me until the end of this part, you are going to understand why so many viewers feel that this moment may have changed everything forever. Because according to ongoing fan discussions and circulating reports, a legal conflict over Coyote Pass quietly escalated into something far more serious than anyone expected. And it allegedly began with something simple, a formal request for fairness, after years of contribution, loyalty, and shared sacrifice. Christine was said to have wanted clarity and closure regarding her financial interest in the property that had once been described as the family dream, the land that symbolized unity, a fresh start, and generational legacy. But here's where the tension starts building, because instead of resolution, there was silence. Instead of discussion, there were delays. And instead of cooperation, there was reportedly resistance. And that resistance, according to speculation, did not just feel financial, it felt personal. And if you have watched this family for years, you know that personal and financial have always been tightly woven together in their story. Because from the early seasons, the message was clear. This was a collective. Every dollar earned, every business launched, every appearance filmed was described as contributing to one shared family vision. So when Christine allegedly sought a buyout, it was not framed by her supporters as greed. It was framed as independence. And independence in this family dynamic has historically carried emotional weight. And here is the question that reportedly moved everything from emotional to legal. Where did the money go? Because during the same period that hardship was described on screen, fans noticed lifestyle differences, larger homes, decorative upgrades, private business ventures, and while none of those are wrongdoings in themselves, timing became the focus, and timing can change perception dramatically. Because if financial strain was real, how were certain expenditures sustained? And that question lingered on online discussions for months before it allegedly entered a courtroom. And once inside that courtroom, the narrative shifted from feelings to figures, from loyalty to ledgers. And according to unverified summaries, Christine's legal team presented a structured timeline outlining income streams, property contributions, and the principle that the family operated financially as a unified entity, meaning shared benefit and shared responsibility. And if that principle held true, then equitable division would logically follow. But the defense reportedly leaned heavily on belief structure, covenant, and family hierarchy, arguing that the family functioned not as a corporation, but as a spiritual unit. And here is where suspense tightens, because when spiritual framing meets civil law, the outcome depends not on belief, but documentation. And documentation, according to circulating accounts, included bank statements, transfer histories, and private account activity that raised questions, not accusations, but questions about consistency. Because if income was collective, did that apply universally or selectively? And that subtle distinction may have become the heart of the entire dispute. And observers claim that when specific transactions were highlighted, luxury collectibles, decorative consultations, personal purchases occurring during months described as financially tight, the energy inside the room shifted. And whether those purchases were justified, contextualized, or misunderstood became secondary to one issue: credibility. And credibility, once challenged, is difficult to restore. And fans who followed the series for over a decade recognize that credibility has always been the invisible thread holding public perception together. because viewers watched declarations of unity, sacrifice, and equal partnership year after year. And suddenly, those declarations were reportedly examined not through edited footage, but through financial summaries. And this is where the retention loop tightens, because if the collective model was real, then transparency should have been consistent. And if transparency was inconsistent, then questions naturally multiply. And as testimony allegedly unfolded, emphasis was placed on intention, protecting harmony, shielding leadership, reducing stress. And supporters argue that intention matters deeply within plural family dynamics. Yet critics counter that intention without clarity breeds imbalance. And imbalance, when tied to assets, becomes conflict. And that conflict may have reached its peak when the alleged total spending during one key month was summarized in court, creating a stark contrast between hardship claims and discretionary outflow. And again, it is important to stress these details are based on circulating reports, not official transcripts. But even as speculation, the narrative gained traction because it connected dots fans had been discussing for years. And here is why this moment feels pivotal, because it represents more than a property dispute. It represents the unraveling of a financial philosophy that defined the family brand for over a decade. The idea that all for one and one for all functioned seamlessly. And when that philosophy was tested under legal scrutiny, the emotional storytelling that once carried episodes could not substitute for structured evidence. And according to those following the alleged proceedings, the judge focused narrowly on consistency, contribution, and fiduciary expectation rather than relational grievances. And that distinction may have shaped everything that followed, because once a court frames a case around financial equity rather than emotional loyalty, the path forward narrows dramatically. And as part one closes, we are left with a powerful, unresolved question. If shared sacrifice was the foundation of the family structure, was it honored equally by everyone involved, or did interpretation evolve over time? And in part two, we will examine what fans believe happened when the ruling was finally delivered, and why some say that single decision permanently altered the future of Coyote Pass and the relationships tied to it. By the time the courtroom reconvened, the atmosphere had reportedly shifted from tension to inevitability, because once financial timelines are laid out and consistency becomes the central theme, emotion alone rarely regains control. And according to ongoing fan discussions, the alleged final day of proceedings carried a quiet intensity that felt heavier than any dramatic confrontation ever shown on television. Because this was no longer about who felt betrayed or who felt unheard. It was about documented contribution, documented ownership, and documented transfers. And as both sides prepared for closing arguments, observers claimed the contrast in strategy became even more pronounced, with one side emphasizing structure, equity, and fiduciary expectation, while the other leaned into unity, faith, and the complexity of plural family dynamics. And here is where the suspense deepens, because closing arguments are not about new evidence, they are about interpretation, and interpretation shapes legacy. And according to circulating summaries, Christine's legal representation reportedly distilled months of speculation into one focused message, that shared financial systems create shared rights, and that if income from the show business ventures and collective efforts flowed into property acquisition, then equitable division was not punishment, but policy. And this framing resonated strongly among viewers who had long questioned whether the collective model described on screen functioned evenly behind the scenes. And yet, the defense allegedly responded by reminding the court that family systems are rarely as clean as spreadsheets, and that decisions within a plural household involve emotional leadership, cultural expectations, and long-standing agreements that may not translate neatly into civil code. And this argument carried emotional weight because family is complex, and viewers understand that complexity deeply, but courts prioritize clarity, and clarity often rests in documentation. And according to unverified accounts, the presiding judge focused repeatedly on financial patterns rather than relational narratives, examining whether there was an established expectation of equal benefit and whether deviations from that expectation were sufficiently justified. And when the alleged spending summaries were revisited, the emphasis was reportedly placed not on what was purchased, but on timing and proportionality, because timing can redefine context and proportionality can influence perception. And if significant discretionary expenditures occurred during periods when hardship was communicated to another legal stakeholder, then the court had to determine whether that discrepancy undermined credibility. And credibility, once questioned, shapes outcomes. And as anticipation built for the ruling, fans across social platforms speculated intensely about potential scenarios, ranging from partial settlement to full property liquidation. And what made this moment so gripping was not just the financial stakes, but the symbolic ones. Because Coyote Pass represented more than acreage. It represented a vision repeatedly described as the future foundation of a united family compound. And if that vision were to be legally restructured, it would signal not just division of land, but dissolution of a shared narrative. And when the decision was finally delivered, according to circulating reports, it was described as measured, direct, and rooted in equitable principle, with emphasis on appraisal, division, and recognition of legal ownership rather than emotional allegiance. And while details remain unofficial, the core takeaway echoed across fan communities that financial contribution over time carries enforceable weight, regardless of relational shifts. And this interpretation reframed years of televised conversations about sacrifice and loyalty, placing them beside the tangible reality of contracts, deeds, and bank activity. And for viewers who had followed every season, the alleged ruling felt like the culmination of unresolved tension that had simmered quietly beneath family dinners, confessional interviews, and relocation debates. And the immediate aftermath reportedly reflected that weight, with visible seriousness rather than spectacle, because legal decisions often land differently than televised arguments. They carry permanence, and permanence changes posture. And according to speculation, the implications extended beyond one property transaction, because equitable division can create ripple effects, influencing mortgage obligations, lifestyle adjustments, and future financial planning. And that possibility fueled intense discussion about whether larger assets might need reassessment and whether long-standing arrangements would require restructuring. And while no official confirmation supports extreme outcomes, the mere suggestion of structural change intensified audience engagement, because this family's financial system had been presented as unified for over a decade, and unity, once redefined, alters perception irreversibly. And here is the final suspense loop. Because even if property is appraised, divided, or sold, the larger question remains: how does a family built on shared principle recalibrate when legal equity replaces emotional hierarchy? And that question lingers beyond any courtroom, beyond any episode, because it speaks to universal themes of contribution, recognition, and fairness. And regardless of where individual viewers stand emotionally, the broader takeaway resonates. Transparency matters, documentation matters, and when shared systems evolve, clarity becomes essential. And as fans await any verified updates, one thing remains certain: the conversation sparked by this alleged ruling has already reshaped how many interpret past seasons, revisiting statements about sacrifice through a new analytical lens. And that shift in perception may ultimately be the most lasting consequence of all, because once audiences begin comparing narrative to numbers, the story transforms from entertainment into examination. And whether future seasons address this chapter directly or allow it to remain in the realm of speculation, the impact on viewer understanding is undeniable. And as we close this part, the lingering question is not simply who won or who lost, but what unity truly meant within that financial framework, and whether the dream attached to Coyote Pass was ever structurally sustainable under equal expectation. And if further developments emerge, they will not just add to the storyline, they will redefine it. And until then, the discussion continues, the analysis deepens, and the legacy of this alleged courtroom chapter remains one of the most compelling unresolved moments in the history of this family saga. So if even half of what's being discussed turns out to be true, then this was never just about property. It was about accountability, fairness, and the unraveling of a family vision that once looked unbreakable. And whether you see this as justice or simply the consequence of complex financial choices, one thing is clear: the conversation is far from over, and the fallout may only be beginning. So if you want real breakdowns, real analysis, and updates the second they drop, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover the stories the network won't, and you do not want to miss what happens next.